So there's no way to butter this up. That was a very boring race. However, we did have an amazing drive from Max Verstappen, my guy, in Suzuka. Let's get into it. This is F1 Fridays, episode number 10. And we're gonna discuss, did McLaren even try to win that race? It seemed like they had the worst strategy call that they could have. Being a one-stop race, it makes things, to my knowledge, a bit easier. They could have undercut or tried to overcut Verstappen. They, however, did neither. They pitted Norris, who was his closest contender, on the exact same lap, which then turned into Norris almost running off in the grass, trying to exit the pit lane the same time as Max Verstappen. It was a disaster in my mind. They also had, I would say, one of the most serious issues. Yes, this strategy is very, very problematic because I do think they lost what could have potentially been a win. But one of the bigger issues that I pointed out recently in the last video is that they do technically have two number one drivers. We did see in this race that Oscar Piastri seemed to have more pace than Lando Norris, and the team was not willing to really make any real call as to letting Oscar go try attack Verstappen. Who knows what the data said, but in every way, shape or form, Oscar was in the back of Lando and seemed to be the one with greater pace. So I do think they should have unleashed Oscar. Let's see if he could catch Verstappen first of all. If he couldn't, it was a simple swap. Let Lando swap back into second and then put Oscar back in third. They didn't even try. So in my mind, are they giving up one of the best opportunities for a championship? Both drivers and constructors championship. Now Max is basically a one-horse race in Red Bull, so I think the constructors is a lot safer than obviously the drivers championship. It is insane that they're letting him capitalize on what seems to be a very difficult car to drive. He is 1 point behind Lando, if I'm not mistaken, in the drivers championship. Yes, it's 3 races in, so it's very early, but I think they have to nip this in the bud. They have to sort it out. Don't let it go on like how it did last season. And if they are trying to really compete moving forward, they do need to prioritize letting the drivers know when to fight or not to fight. And Max being in that fight is not good for them because we all know what Max can do. But McLaren has some time to sort it out. Should they take time? No, they should be making, I think, more gutsy calls and be very strong in what they say to the drivers, because I think Oscar and Lando, I mean any two F1 drivers want to win or they want to be in front of their teammate, so they're not just gonna let up. It seems to be hampering them as expected. I think the time has come to talk a little bit about the rookies and how they've done. We just finished race 3. So far, I think some rookies were amazing. They showed their potential, they showed their class, and others are a bit shaky. So let me get into it. First of all, I want to start with Ollie Behrman. Now, he has had so far a very good few races. He has shown that he can outpace Ocon. That last race in Suzuka was amazing. He scored points. I do think he's one to watch out for. Now, keep in mind, he does have some experience in an F1 car from last season, but he is still technically a rookie. Everyone expected him to do well. They don't know exactly what type of machinery that Haas is giving him, but he seems to be capitalizing, and props to him. I don't have to change the color. I want to talk about Isaac Hadjar. I think it's very commendable in the way he recovered from that disaster in Melbourne. If you don't know, he crashed on the formation lap or ran off, didn't even get to race. However, in the other 2 races, he has improved tremendously and showed his pace. He was very much keeping up with Yuki, and also now that Lawson is back in the team, he seems to be the way quicker driver. Lawson needs time. That was his first race back, but Hadjar is doing very well, and I think it shows his strength and determination to come back from what happened in race 1. I do want to move on to Kimi Antonelli, the guy with all the hype in the Mercedes. To be very honest, he has put no foot wrong. I think Kimi has done exactly what he has to do. Keep it simple, don't do anything stupid, keep the car on track and drive fast. And that's what he's been doing. I think he is developing very well. Time will tell exactly where he stands in terms of Russell's pace. He is doing everything he has to. I think the Mercedes and Toto could be very, very happy with what he's shown so far. And let's see moving forward how the improvement goes for both himself and the car. Now, Bortoleto is the other rookie that I want to bring up. It's a bit difficult to, I would say, judge him yet because that car is very slow. We see that Hülkenberg is kind of struggling as well, but for the most part, I think Bortoleto is doing well. I don't think there's enough to really show his true potential in his first few races. And in that car, I do hope he gets a better drive or better car for next season. At least Audi will be pouring in a lot of resources and he should be able to get something decent moving forward. So I would want to move on to the guy I think is in the hot seat. Now, coming into the season, Duhan had all these rumors that they were going to replace him after the first race with Colapinto, and obviously that didn't happen. He's still here. However, I don't think he's really solidifying his place. I don't think he's making it easy for them to keep him in that seat. He has struggled a bit. He's a bit crashy. He shows some tendencies. I don't know if it's the pressure and having that person hanging on your back, but for the most part, he didn't do that well. He had a crazy crash this past weekend due to not closing the DRS flap after the DRS zone and went into the corner with the flap open. Obviously, lack of downforce, went straight off. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, like 50 G's crashing. It shows testament to the safety of these current F1 cars, and props to that. He is completely safe, he's fine, that's the most important thing. But I think he has to just take his time and keep it simple. I think he has to look a little bit at Kimi, at what Kimi's doing, and just trying to lock it in. And when you have all that pressure and when you just started, you don't need to do anything fancy. Hold your seat down and see where the car takes you. Alpine seems to have a very slow car as well. They're struggling at the beginning of the season. We also saw Pierre Gasly struggling with that car. So I hope he gets time. However, do I think he has time? No. So let's see how that plays out. Now, I want to get into an interesting topic in Formula One, which is, do these current generation cars have an overtaking problem? Now, it draws onto this past weekend. It was very boring in terms of overtaking. Yes, we had an amazing drive from Max and he ran away with the win after converting that pole, but it was not very entertaining. I think we have to understand that this is entertainment, and I know for a lot of people in the West waking up very late to watch that race. It was like 1, 2 a.m. and there's no overtakes, nothing really going on. The positions from the start grid is how it basically ended with a few minor changes. And I think it's something they have to look at in terms of the one-stop strategy. It seems to be that any track that has a one-stop strategy, the race turns out to be very boring if we don't get any rain. There was a bit of rain possibly forecasted this weekend, but it fell before the actual race. But it did wet the track a bit before. However, let's see if this 2026 regulation making the cars smaller, we'll see if they're able to follow closer. It seems very difficult in the dirty air to keep those tires going, and the degradation is very high if you try to follow. We even saw that with Oscar Piastri, where he was very close to Lando, couldn't really make the overtake or didn't want to lunge or make an attempt, and he was just eating up his tires. We also saw some faster cars like Yuki in 12 not being able to pass the car in front, which seemed to be going a bit slower. However, the overtaking power with one DRS zone was not enough. You find that the delta isn't enough. You have to get within like 1/10 to be able to lunge. And Suzuka is a bit of an anomaly with the track layout. It is difficult to pass, but I think it could be an overarching problem. Now, They did try to fix this in Monaco. Obviously, we know Monaco is a very tight street track, so it's very difficult to make overtakes. And they did now mandate that it will be a 2-stop race instead of a 1-stop race. So you do have to take 2 mandatory pit stops. That changes it a lot. Obviously, pit strategy comes into play. You can make overtakes through your strategy. And I do think they have to look at the tracks with low degradation. Do they need to implement that same rule on those to make it more entertaining? I will support it. No changes would really be made, obviously, till they see those new 2026 regulation cars in full form, and we'll see exactly how they can chase each other and if it will be more exciting or not. But this race this past weekend was a bit of a bore, and I don't think it's good for the sport overall if cars are just following each other around a track. So for the most part, let's hope that could be worked on moving forward. Now, I would like to go into my F1 fantasy analysis, and I think after that 3rd race, the DNFs on the first race in Melbourne will now cancel on the budget changes. So for those who don't know, your 3 race average as a driver is what dictates your price moving up or down, and it also varies based on how well you do, points expected basically. The more points you make over that threshold, the higher your value will increase, and vice versa. So a lot of these drivers were affected by that DNF in the first race. This, moving on to the 4th race, that first race technically cancels out into that budget building, and we now start afresh with the 2nd race in China moving forward to Bahrain. This means there's a few drivers that may not have been in play recently that you can look at. There's Bortoleto, there's Hadjar. I think Hadjar is a steal because it seems to be that the floor for a driver is 4.5 million in terms of cost. So technically they're not able to go down in any value and they can still score you points. So I think that might be a bit of the meta build currently moving forward with both Hadjar and Bortoleto for a few weeks. I don't expect too many changes till the sprint weekend in Miami. A lot of people will be kind of tweaking and setting up their teams to capitalize on that sprint weekend. We do have somewhat chips in play like wildcard. Moving into sprint weekend, you can use wildcard, swap the entire team to get it ready for maybe a possible limitless in Miami. I think that would be a bit of my strategy. Probably shouldn't tell you that because I'm up against most of you in my fantasy league. But capitalize on sprint weekends. That's where you can maximize points. This is our current fantasy standings on our open league. We have Max owns it in first with 544. Then we have Dan Stappen. And then we have 2025 winners, which I'm guessing is a late entry again. It seems like you could join the league after it started. So some of the teams are popping up as we move forward. That's 3rd place. I'm in 4th with 507. And Kosi, you're still behind with 474. I'll take that dub this week. Hopefully I can move up the ladder. I need to be in that 1st position. We're not playing this to lose. But props to everyone in that top 10. We had a lot of changes. Now, I do want to also mention that I will most likely miss posting after the Bahrain race because I am traveling. It is going to be very difficult to get the resources to upload a video. So I just want to give you that heads up. I might be missing a week for F1 Fridays, so don't miss me too much. But I also did not want to go too in depth of what to expect in Bahrain because I'm filming this before I watch practice 1, etc. So I don't want to just give you random thoughts. I want to go off of some statistics at least. Another important thing that I want to mention is that Hirakawa, who did his FP1 with the Alpine team, he is a prospect moving forward. He switched actually from Alpine to Haas. He does have a relationship with Toyota, and I think this was in play even before he did his FP1 session in Alpine. He did impress. Everyone was very impressed with how he performed in Suzuka. So let's see how that develops in the future. But that is an important change to the F1 driver market or future driver market. And I would like to say that I will continue content after the Bahrain race, after my trip. I do expect to be back to regularly scheduled programming. So thank you for tuning in. This was F1 Fridays episode number 10.